How does a brutal 40 degrees Celsius heat wave in Florence, Italy, end up funding a shadow militia in the lawless deserts of southern Libya?
Right.
And, how does a routine maritime law enforcement patrol in the Mediterranean accidentally provoke a threat of military retaliation from Russia? Today, we are connecting those exact dots. Good morning and welcome to today's Deep Dive. Today is June 25, 2026. We're analyzing a region that has historically been the crossroads of empires, and right now it is the absolute center of a highly complex web of global events. We're focusing on the Mediterranean under the title Mediterranean Pressure Points, Migration, Terror Networks, and Regional Stability.
Good morning. It is a vital and frankly incredibly dense area to analyze right now. We are looking at a geographic space where layers of security, climate, and diplomatic challenges are, well, they're physically colliding on a daily basis.
Yeah, they really are. But before we unpack all of this, I want to share a quick message about our sponsor, ProWave AI. This deep dive is generated by Stylo News, an AI-powered news application. And what is genuinely fascinating about Stylo News is that it's the consumer version of the Stylo Intel Ops software.
Right, the enterprise system.
Exactly. That is the exact system designed for and utilized by government, military, and major business enterprises. So by listening today, you are getting unique access to a tool designed to support global decision makers.
And regarding how we will utilize that intelligence today, let's establish our mission statement. We are synthesizing a vast array of intelligence estimates covering North Africa and Southern Europe over the past 2 weeks. I want to explicitly state our ground rules here. Think of our approach today much like a classic professional news broadcast from decades past.
Right.
We are here to calmly present the facts, explore diverse perspectives, and outline potential courses of action with strict neutrality. We are not taking political sides, and our objective is to inform and explain the mechanics of these events without generating fear.
I love that approach. Objective, analytical, and focus entirely on the facts. To truly understand the Mediterranean right now, we have to start with its most volatile anchor point, which is Libya.
Yes, absolutely.
If you just glance at the headlines over the last 2 weeks, you might actually think things are relatively quiet. I mean, there isn't a massive conventional war dominating the front pages today.
But that quiet is highly deceptive. When we look at the internal data, Libya's current state is explicitly described as a false stability. This is not a durable peace built on unified, functional government institutions. Instead, it's a fragile, highly transactional calm.
Transactional in what way?
Well, it is a system dictated by rival armed elites and militias who essentially hold veto power over everything. They control the state consolidation process, they control the budget distribution, and they can halt any potential electoral track whenever it suits their financial interests.
So it is an environment where the absence of a major battlefield conflict definitely does not mean the presence of peace. It's an extortion economy, really. And this lawless environment is exactly what allows shadow networks to thrive. The intelligence points to the ongoing active presence of several terror networks. We're looking at JNIM alongside remnants of IS Libya and EQM.
Right.
For our listeners who don't track these groups daily, can you break down who they are and how they operate in this space?
Certainly. JNM, which stands for the Support Group for Islam and Muslims, is an umbrella coalition of extremist groups that acts as a remarkably powerful alternative authority down in Mali.
Okay.
EQAM is al-Qaida in the Islamic Maghreb, and IS Libya refers to the Islamic State affiliates operating in the region. What is critical here is not just who they are, but how they use the geography. They're utilizing the Maghreb-Sahel interface, the vast porous border regions, to funnel directly into southern Libya.
Because the central authority is so fragmented.
Precisely. Because the central government in Tripoli is weak, areas around Sebha in the south have become highly permissive environments. They serve as massive, unregulated logistics hubs. These groups use these corridors for clandestine movement, weapons smuggling, and strategic regrouping.
I want to push back on something here, though, because it's a point that often confuses people. If we track the daily updates, there hasn't been a major headline-grabbing terror attack in North Africa in the last 24 to 48 hours.
True.
So are we really looking at a regional terror threat right now, or is this just a localized problem of organized crime and rogue militias?
That is the most common misconception, and it dangerously misreads how these modern networks operate. We have to understand the concept of a feeder theater.
A feeder theater.
Yes. The Sahel and southern Libya act as a staging ground. The absence of a mass casualty event today absolutely does not indicate a reduction in their capability. Instead, these groups are systematically using the fragmented militia landscape to quietly build out their logistics networks, secure their fuel supply routes, and establish permanent border transit capabilities. They are laying the groundwork.
I see.
The threat is structural, it is based on posture and logistics rather than being driven by immediate daily events.
Okay, that clarifies things immensely. It's less like a traditional battlefield and more like a dark web server. It isn't the place where the actual attack happens. It is the secure, ungoverned infrastructure where the malware is built, stored, and sold entirely out of sight.
That is a highly accurate analogy, and the human security threat on the ground within that server is immediate and severe. Over the past 2 weeks, highly coordinated disinformation campaigns have been spreading rapidly online, utilizing the nationalist slogan, Libya for Libyans.
And we are seeing how quickly online rhetoric turns into physical violence. This isn't just internet chatter. The timeline shows that these campaigns recently triggered physical protests where crowds attempted to storm UN agency offices.
Right.
It required immediate military interventions to protect the compounds. More terrifyingly, we are seeing verified death threats and kidnapping attempts specifically targeting UN humanitarian operators in Tripoli, Benghazi, and Tunis.
Which underscores the absolute volatility of the region. When humanitarian operators are targeted and forced to withdraw, the already precarious aid delivery system fractures completely. And the people who suffer the most in this vacuum are the migrants.
Yes, the reports on that are grim.
The intelligence highlights horrific conditions for individuals trapped in this environment. Currently, there are roughly 300 Kurdish men from Iraq being held hostage for ransom by militias.
And African human rights organizations are simultaneously raising alarms about thousands of Cameroonian migrants trapped in secret detention centers where they face systemic extortion, illegal detention, and torture.
It's a profound humanitarian crisis.
It truly is. But this internal fragility in Libya, this massive power vacuum, isn't happening in isolation. Global players are actively rushing in to exploit it, which turns the entire Mediterranean into a very crowded geopolitical chessboard.
Exactly. And the players on this board are making significant moves that impact the entire global order. Let's look at recent diplomatic maneuvers. French President Macron recently hosted Saddam Haftar at the Élysée Palace in Paris.
And he's a prominent military figure from eastern Libya, correct?
Yes, he is. This meeting is a highly significant signal. It indicates that major European powers are hedging their bets. Rather than exclusively throwing their weight behind the UN-backed unified state in Tripoli, they are engaging directly with eastern Libyan power centers to secure their own strategic interests regarding border control and regional influence.
It's pure pragmatism over idealism. Meanwhile, the clash between the European Union and Russia is escalating right in the middle of this same sea. The EU has expanded the mandate of Operation Irene.
Right, the naval mission.
Yes, this is a European naval operation originally set up to enforce the UN arms embargo on Libya. But now it's tasked with inspecting ships suspected of transporting Russian oil. The mechanical goal here is to enforce sanctions and limit the revenue streams funding Russia's military operations.
And Russia's response has been unequivocally stern. The Russian Foreign Ministry formally condemned the EU's expanded mandate, framing it as a direct violation of international maritime law regarding the freedom of navigation.
They didn't just protest, though.
No, they haven't just protested. They have openly threatened to use all necessary measures to protect their shipping interests. This places a vital global trade corridor under immense tension. When warships from opposing blocs are operating in the same waters with competing mandates, the risk of miscalculation skyrockets.
Absolutely.
And for Russia, this is about broader strategic objectives, including sustaining their military footprint in Syria and pursuing potential basing expansions along the Libyan coast.
Then you add Turkey into the mix, and the complexity doubles again. Turkey is making highly aggressive energy plays. Their state-owned oil company, TPAO, just signed comprehensive agreements to take a 40% stake in hydrocarbon exploration blocks off the coast of Benghazi and Sirte.
To understand why this matters, we have to look at the mechanics of maritime law. By securing these rights, Turkey isn't just trying to extract fuel, they are leveraging their political and military ties in Libya to project their own maritime influence outward.
Which causes friction with their neighbors.
Severe friction, particularly with Greece, over where the boundaries of their respective exclusive economic zones actually lie. It forces other European nations into a very difficult position. They have to navigate highly divergent national interests. Some European countries want to cooperate with Turkey to secure non-Russian energy sources, while others view Turkey's naval expansion as a direct security concern.
Sitting right in the geographic center of all these overlapping disputes is Italy. And Italy is currently evolving its entire defense and economic posture with a strategy they call the Mediterranean Allargato, or the expanded Mediterranean.
Yes.
Italian defense officials, specifically figures like General Luciano Portolano, are actively pushing for NATO to fundamentally shift its focus. They want the alliance to pay much more attention to its southern flank rather than focusing almost exclusively on the eastern border with Russia.
Italy recognizes that its geographic position makes it the frontline state for all these converging crises. Because of this, they're proposing major infrastructural modernizations. One of the most ambitious ideas currently being discussed is a massive undersea tunnel connecting Sicily to Tunisia.
Wow.
The logic is to structurally enhance connectivity and economic integration between Europe and North Africa. Italy is arguing, quite forcefully, that you cannot guarantee European security solely by fortifying the eastern flank. The southern maritime border is equally, if not more, porous and critical.
It's an incredibly fragile dynamic. It's as if multiple countries are simultaneously trying to build heavy, multi-story extensions on a house whose foundation is actively crumbling.
That's a vivid way to picture it.
And we haven't even touched on the broader Middle East yet. How do the current events in the Levant and the Gulf play into this specific Mediterranean chessboard?
They act as a massive force multiplier for regional instability. When we review the intelligence, we see continuous U.S.-Iran strike exchanges, Iranian retaliatory actions against U.S.-linked targets, the ongoing Hezbollah-Israel conflict in Lebanon, and persistent threats to commercial shipping in both the Strait of Hormuz and the Red Sea. For Southern Europe, this is absolutely not an abstract, distant conflict. It represents a direct mathematical risk.
Right, and this brings it back to you, the listener. It is easy to view these events as isolated dots on a map. But you have to consider how an energy dispute off the coast of Libya, or a naval standoff regarding Russian oil in the Mediterranean, or proxy violence in Lebanon, directly impacts your life.
It impacts everything from logistics to security.
Exactly. These events dictate global fuel prices. They disrupt the international supply chains that deliver goods to your local stores, and they force changes to the national security protocols in your own country. It is a highly interconnected, reactive system.
And the most reactive element within that interconnected system is the human element. The combination of militia violence, geopolitical jockeying, and entrenched terror networks inevitably forces people to flee their homes. But what we are seeing now is that this migration crisis is being dramatically compounded by a threat multiplier that respects no borders at all, and that is extreme climate shifts.
And we can see this happening in real time. The data shows that Italy is currently experiencing a massive, oppressive heat wave driven by a strong North African anticyclone. We are seeing sustained temperatures soaring to 40 degrees Celsius. That's 104 degrees Fahrenheit in cities like Bologna and Florence, combined with suffocating humidity along the coastal regions.
The mechanics of a heat wave like this go far beyond discomfort. It creates severe, cascading strain on public infrastructure. Public health systems are flooded with vulnerable patients, power grids are pushed to the brink of failure due to cooling demands, and agricultural yields are severely threatened.
It touches every sector.
It does. And to highlight just how drastically the global ecological dynamics are shifting, we can look at a recent biological anomaly. The United Kingdom just recorded its first ever sighting of a tropical western reef heron in North Wales.
In North Wales. That is incredible.
While that is a thrilling moment for local bird watchers, from an intelligence perspective, it is a stark indicator. It proves that milder winters and rapidly shifting climate patterns are fundamentally altering the survival and migration routes for multiple species.
And if the climate is shifting migration routes for birds, it is absolutely doing the same for humans. Let's look at the actual migration numbers. The European Commission, under the leadership of Ursula von der Leyen, has made reinforcing border management in North Africa a primary policy goal. They recently released figures showing a 40% drop in irregular arrivals during early 2026. However, even with that significant percentage drop, over 12,000 migrants, primarily originating from Bangladesh, Somalia, and Sudan, still managed to survive the journey and reach Italy via the central Mediterranean route.
And the human cost of attempting that journey remains staggering. The intelligence details a tragic event just recently where a heavily overcrowded migrant boat capsized off the coast of Tobruk, Libya.
Yes.
The scale of the disaster completely overwhelmed the local Red Crescent and Coast Guard recovery operations. It is a grim reminder of the persistent, lethal dangers inherent to this central maritime route.
The EU's primary course of action to address this has been to tighten asylum rules, implement new, stricter deportation frameworks, and crucially increase financial funding to North African regimes. The goal is to pay these states to act as a physical buffer zone.
Yes, that is the core strategy.
But international organizations and human rights groups fiercely criticize these partnerships. They point directly back to the abuses we discussed earlier, the secret detention centers, the extortion, the hostage-taking in Libya.
Oh.
So I have to ask a difficult question regarding the logic here. If arrivals in Europe are down 40%, but we still have mass casualties off Tobruk and thousands being abused in secret militia camps, is the policy actually solving the crisis, or is it just moving the bottleneck and the tragedy further out of sight?
Well, that question strikes at the absolute core of how we measure success in international policy. It depends entirely on whose perspective you adopt. From a strictly domestic border management perspective, the reduction in physical arrivals is viewed as a significant policy achievement by European leadership. It directly eases their internal political tensions and takes pressure off their municipal resources. However, from a humanitarian and long-term geopolitical stability perspective, outsourcing your border control to fractured states like Libya does not address the root causes of why people are moving, whether that movement is economic, conflict-driven, or climate-induced.
It just masks the symptom.
As you noted, it simply shifts the bottleneck. It relocates the crisis into highly opaque, unsafe environments where international oversight is practically non-existent.
Which naturally leads us to ask how the public is reacting to all of this.
Sure.
How are everyday people, the voters who influence these regional decision makers, processing these overlapping pressures? To understand that, we can turn to sentiment analysis harvested from social media over the past 2 weeks to gauge the public pulse and identify what might happen next.
The social media data, specifically analyzing sentiment on platforms like X, reveals deep, fascinating, and sometimes contradictory divisions. On one hand, there is a very strong, highly protective pushback from users against any Italian or European military presence in the Red Sea and North Africa.
Right.
Many users are fiercely citing sovereignty concerns for nations like Eritrea and Egypt. They're demanding that non-littoral states, meaning countries that don't share a border with those waters, withdraw their forces immediately.
But conversely, when the topic of conversation shifts to Europe's own internal defense capabilities, the sentiment flips completely. There is highly positive sentiment and massive engagement regarding Europe's commitment to aggressively rearming and hitting a target of an €800 billion defense spend by 2030. People seem to view this massive industrial buildup as absolutely essential for balancing global powers.
And amidst all of this, the data flags significant public anxiety regarding novel threats. There were high-traction alarmist warnings circulating widely about the risk of Libyan-origin seaborne drones potentially attacking commercial shipping in the Mediterranean.
Is that an imminent threat?
Well, whether that specific tactical threat is imminent today or not is secondary. The sheer traction those posts received proves that the general public is acutely sensitive to the vulnerabilities of global maritime trade.
What stands out to me when looking at that data is the inherent tension. It's fascinating that public sentiment is simultaneously demanding a stronger, heavily rearmed Europe to protect its borders, while fiercely criticizing those exact same European militaries whenever they intervene abroad or patrol foreign waters to secure supply lines.
It's a paradox.
It perfectly illustrates how incredibly difficult it is for decision makers to chart a broadly popular course of action. They are caught in a vice between a public mandate for absolute security and a deep public aversion to foreign entanglement.
Precisely. And looking at the intelligence estimates for what is likely to happen next, those decision makers have to prepare for immediate cascading effects. The most critical indicator to watch right now is the ceasefire dynamic between Lebanon and Israel.
Why is that the key indicator?
If that fragile agreement breaks down further, the predictive models project significant potential surges of migrants and refugees heading directly into Cyprus and Greece. This would place immense immediate pressure on the Eastern Mediterranean infrastructure.
We also have to be on high alert for further Russian hybrid pressure. The analysts are explicitly warning that Moscow may seek to intentionally stretch NATO's attention and resources along the southern flank, while the alliance remains heavily focused on the war in Ukraine.
Yes.
In practical terms, this could manifest as erratic drone spillover into NATO airspace around the Black Sea, or the deliberate, cynical manipulation of migration routes from Libya to create intentional political stress and division within Europe.
If we synthesize all of this, if we connect the events of these past 2 weeks into a broader picture, it leaves us with a profound conceptual shift to consider. The situation in the Mediterranean in 2026 strongly suggests that our traditional textbook understanding of what constitutes war might be entirely obsolete.
Right, because when we look at the board, we aren't looking at massive tank divisions rolling across borders or formal declarations of war read out in parliaments.
Exactly. Instead, we are looking at the weaponization of human migration. We are looking at obscure energy exploration deals being utilized purely for geopolitical leverage. We see proxy militias acting as the enforcement arms of major nation-states, and a highly sophisticated disinformation campaigns designed to incite localized mob violence against humanitarian workers.
It's a completely different paradigm.
It is. We must impartially ask ourselves, have we entered an era where hybrid statecraft permanently replaces formal, conventional conflict? And if the lines between peace and war are forever blurred by these shadow tactics, does that mean formal stability may never actually return to this region?
That is a massive, highly provocative thought to mull over, and it fundamentally reframes how we consume the daily news. We've covered a tremendous amount of ground today, analyzing the intricate mechanisms that connect a severe heat wave in Italy to an extortion economy in Libya, all the way to a tense naval standoff with Russia.
It's a complex web, but understanding it is essential.
It absolutely is. And I want to remind you that the intelligence we synthesize today is available right at your fingertips. We highly encourage you to subscribe to Stylo News. It is a remarkably powerful mobile and computer application where you can download and perfectly customize your own personal intelligence-style briefs.
It's quite a tool.
It pulls data from hundreds of traditional news sources, as well as real-time sentiment from platforms like X, giving you the exact same analytical edge as the experts. You can get this AI-powered news on demand by visiting www.stylonews.com.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We always appreciate your time, your attention, and your curiosity. Please feel free to reach out and request topics for future deep dives, and be sure to follow Stylo News on your favorite social media platforms. Until next time, keep questioning the headlines and looking beneath the surface. Have a great day.